Gene Taylor, the AD, Director of Athletics at Kansas State, starts our show and our week with us. Craig Smoke and Paul Catalina, and I'm David Smoke. You guys got a women's game there tonight, is that right?
Yeah, it's kind of big. Looking forward to it. You know, the women have been playing really well. They're just a really fun team to watch, and Baylor's always a tough opponent. So, you know, we're just trying to put ourselves in position to hopefully, you know, have an opportunity to play for or tie or win the Big 12 regular season and put ourselves in a good position for the conference tournament.
What is your overall, glance, look, view of college athletics right now with so many changes? We've had you on multiple times. Nothing much has changed other than the calendar. But how you try to look at all of this and not so much contain it, but just gather it all in as an AD.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's, just an unprecedented time right now in college athletics with this settlement looming in April and trying to figure out all of the intricacies of putting that together, whether it's how we're going to share the revenue, where the revenue is going to come from. You know, a $20,500,000 new budget line item is a pretty big number. You know, we're used to adding budget line items over the years, but nothing this large. And so it's really been that's kind of probably at least our primary focus. And as I talk to my colleagues in the Big 12 and around the country, trying to figure this out and getting prepared for it, not only when April 7th comes, but then when July 1st comes, it's really one of the biggest focus we have, both as athletic directors and as staff, trying to figure all this out and getting ready to make it put into place come July 1st.
Where do you feel the Big 12 is positioned to move into the future as a conference, especially seeing is that most of the news that we hear, that doesn't mean that's most of the news that's out there, but most of the news we hear is about the SEC and Big Ten in a kind of a more grab.
Yeah, you know, I obviously we all hear that and read it as well. To answer your question directly, I think the Big 12 is in a great spot. We've added these other schools, the Four Corner schools, were 16 strong. I just feel we're probably one of the best places we've been in a long time. Obviously, basketball season is one of the toughest conferences in the country. Football this year, Arizona State had a great run. Probably should have won that game against Texas. But I think we're positioned very well. And yeah, you hear a lot about what the SEC and the Big Ten are trying to do in terms of, grabbing maybe the spots in the future playoff if they expand the playoff more than 12 and all those kind of conversations. But I still think as a conference, we're solid and we're continuing to get better. And Brett Yormark's doing a great job leading us. And we have a group of ADs that really want to work together to continue to make this conference as strong as it can be in all of our sports. But, certainly football and basketball get the most focus across the country right now.
Gene, so the four that were onboarded are about to complete their first trip around the league here at the end of the semester, and then you've got the BYU, Houston, et cetera, who are completing their second trip around the league. Have you had a trip or just a place that you've seen or maybe a moment at one of these 8 new places that has stood out or been kind of a memorable thing for you?
Well, it wasn't a great memory because they took it to us, but the BYU atmosphere in football, I was able to make that trip It's I believe our atmosphere is one of the best in the country. I think probably every AD does think their home atmosphere. But when I talk to ADs that have been to BYU, they talk about the atmosphere and some of the in-game promotion and stuff that they do. There's a lot of energy. Their students bring a lot of energy. I didn't go to the basketball trip this year, but same kind of response from the fans that were there. Really, really tough place to play, obviously. Both Kansas and Kansas State went in there and had a rough go of it. But BYU stands out. I mean, that's the only – I've not been to Arizona State. I've been to Cincinnati in basketball. They've got a great venue. But a couple other places I haven't been to yet in football. But the BYU one, even though we took it on the chin, stood out to me.
When you talk and discuss business with donors or alums, how much of that now is percentage towards revenue sharing, which is that house settlement whenever that NIL, and how much is it now, no matter what you have or what you're building or what's in the plans, facilities, which used to be money you needed?
Well, we're we're actually pretty in a pretty good spot here at K-State, to be honest with you. We've wrapped up a lot of brand new facilities over the last couple of years to the tune of probably 250, $275 million. And as we go forward looking at massive facility issues, we don't really have any. We just had a big meeting with our top donors this past weekend, and we told them, we're not going to come after you for any massive facility campaigns in the next 5 or 6 years. We just don't. We've upgraded soccer, we've upgraded baseball, we've got a new indoor football facility. We just built a brand new volleyball and Olympic training center. Our basketball practice facility is great. Bramlage is in a good spot right now. We've added premium seating in there. So from a facility standpoint, we're really in a good shape. So right now our focus is 100% on letting these people understand what the revenue share means, the intricacies behind it, how we're going to get there, and really just asking our donors that this is going to be our new capital campaign for you, is trying to come up with the dollars for the next 5-6 years to cover this 20,500,000 or as much as we can, and we think we'll get there. We just a great meeting this past weekend with our top donors, and they were all certainly on board to try to help us.
Gene Taylor, Director of Athletics at K-State, with us on 365 Sports.
Are you worried there's anything that's going to suffer because of this? Or is this just reallocating and figuring different things out?
Yeah, I don't. Our plan that we've got, that we've been working on, that we've been sharing with our coaches, is no one's really going to suffer. Obviously, the goal is we've got to get to the 20,500,000, and if we do, a lot of things will stay in place. We're, again, another advantage we have is we don't have a lot of sports. We have the minimum number, so the sports that we have are going to still fund at the highest level in terms of scholarships and travel and all those things. We're not, there are areas in our budget clearly that we can trim back that, probably have some fluff in it. But I don't see us suffering anywhere. And the fact is because we're in such great shape facility wise, we're going to focus on making sure that our sports get their share of the revenue, depending on how we decide to put that out there. But every sport's going to benefit either in additional scholarships and or revenue share dollars. So we're in a pretty good spot right now.
So I saw an article from Sports Business Journal, I guess it was about a week or maybe longer than that ago, about you guys talking about the possibility of naming rights and beer sales, and that just goes hand in hand with kind of what you're talking about, just new ways to find money. Do you kind of just sometimes have to pinch yourself and realize this is still college athletics just because of all the things that were so taboo, even 5 years ago? And when you decide to go forward with something that's a little bit unorthodox compared to traditional, kind of how do you think that through and decide, this is something to pursue versus maybe not just yet?
Yeah. Everything, we're looking at everything, like you said, and every revenue source. Are we missing any? Are we missing any opportunities to add, sponsorships in our facilities? Whatever. We're looking at everything we possibly can look at. You mentioned naming rights, et cetera. Ironically, I was at SMU as an intern when they got the death penalty for exactly what we're being able to do now. So it's been kind of crazy when I think back about that. But yeah, at times it's uncomfortable, and that's actually what I told our donors this weekend. I said, I know this conversation is very uncomfortable for you because in the past we focused on scholarships and buildings and supporting the student athletes through our programs, and now we're asking you to come up with dollars that will go directly in their pocket. But it's a changing landscape, and if we don't get on board and get involved and be a part of it, then we're going to fall behind. And I actually showed them some pictures of, where our stadium is now being sold out at 50,000 in terms of football, and Bramlage having, many sellouts to some times in the past when we haven't been successful. And I showed them some empty stadiums, and I said, we got two choices. We can continue to fill our stadiums because we're successful, or we can go backwards to where we were. And it was a pretty stark reminder of folks that, hey, we've got to be on board with this.
Does your time when you helped what happened with the amazing success at North Dakota State, when you were there and what you built there and what they did, does that not so much help at Kansas State, but seeing that growth, does that help you at all right now?
Yeah, I certainly reflect back on that and that challenge that we took on, going from Division II to Division I and how we got there in terms of everybody getting on board and doing their part and having really good communication with all of our coaches and staff. So, there weren't any surprises. I kind of pulled back on that process and the fact that it did work for us. And it's a very different challenge, but it's a similar process in my mind, and making sure that there are no surprises. The coaches all have a chance to give their input. Our staff, our compliance staff, our business staff are all part of the process. And so when we institute it in July, everybody knows what's coming. They know exactly what their piece is going to be and how much they're going to get and what their scholarship allocation looks like. But I think the more you can include people, the better. Even though it's going to be a difficult time for some of us, it flows a lot better, and there's a lot more buy-in to the process than just trying to do it, by myself and a couple of people, and all of a sudden introducing it and say, here's your situation. So I pulled back on that time at North Dakota State quite a bit.
How do you feel about the ongoing discussions about the college football playoff and expansion and possible automatic qualifiers and at all?
Yeah, obviously I kind of felt when we went to 12 that eventually I think we'd go a little bit more. I don't know that at 16 is the right number. I think that becomes to get to really a long season, and we probably have to adjust some other things, either the start date or potential conference championship games. So I think 14 is a number that everybody's a little more comfortable with. I haven't looked deep into it. In terms of the automatic qualifiers, I know that that's what the Big Ten and SEC are pushing, and certainly there's some data for them to push that. But I would tell you that I don't think that's what the fans want. I mean, they want to, in no other championship do we have other than one automatic qualifier, whether it's basketball or baseball or soccer or whatever. Each conference gets one automatic qualifier, and I think that's the way it should be, and earn your way into the playoffs. I think if those conferences believe in themselves and believe in their ability to be successful, they probably will get more than two teams, or maybe even three, possibly four in some years. But I could see a real pushback that a fourth place team that gets an automatic bid, that's an 8-4 or 9-3 team over a 10-1 or 10-2 or 11-1 team because of the conference that they're in. I just think that's not what playoffs are about. It's about earning your way in. It's about, playing for a true championship. And I think that's the way it should be. But I know that's what they're pushing for, and we'll see how it comes out.
You've been on the college football playoff selection committee, but you only had to deal with the 4 teams. So were you, you think, envious of the broader field, or are you kind of thankful that you only had to deal with the 4, seeing kind of how things went this year?
No, that's a good question. I actually sat at home for the first several weeks and just kind of did my own little, selection, and process that I've followed when I was part of the CFP committee. I enjoyed my time there. It was awesome. It was a good group of ADs and other folks that were part of that committee. It was probably the highlight of my career, whether it was 4. But I would have liked to be able to have the chance to just try the difference, what the difference was. I didn't know that there was going to be a lot, because I think the process is still the same, and what we looked at, quality wins, road wins, opponents, that sort of thing. It's just they were, and you have to remember, even while we were only picking 4 for the playoffs, we still, the top 12 teams really mattered in the selection because of the bowls they got to go to. So it was still kind of a similar process. It just, I would have liked to gone through one more year just to see what the difference was in the room. But I really value who's ever in that room. It's not an easy job. People take it very seriously, and they want to get it right. At the end of the day, that's what they want to do, is get it right for college football. And the people in that room care a great deal about it. And it was an experience I'll treasure forever because of the people I got a chance to be in the room with.
There does seem to be the 2 conferences that get most of the attention when it comes to the AQs or whatever it might be, and the ones who are making the decisions. but everybody gave them that opportunity with decisions from a year ago. Do you look back at that and not, I don't know, the word is regret? Brett Yormark represents the Big 12. He's known as a bulldog and a fighter. Did people give in too much to giving up too much for the movement? What is next starting after this year?
Yeah, I wasn't in the room, obviously, and so I don't know what all those conversations were like. And I know that from the financial side of things, they got the Big 12 or the Big 10 and the SEC got certainly a bigger percentage than the ACC and the Big 12. I think initially the reason was that they had the data, right? They had the eyeballs, but I think as we go through the future of the playoffs, whether it's 12 or 14, I think that could change based on who starts qualifying. It's one thing when you only have 4 teams. If you have 14 or 12, you're gonna have a lot more conferences qualifying, more teams from the Power 4 conferences, and I think that formula might change. And so I think in the initial discussion, they had to go with what they had in terms of data in front of them. But I know Brett, he didn't back down from anything, and I know he won't back down in this future conversation about the number of qualifiers. But we need to support him and do whatever we can. But I think as a conference, we just need to focus on putting our efforts into football with the CFP, get as many teams and qualify possibly each year, and that'll put us in a good spot for the future.
You gave up a home game to play in Ireland, and and obviously that's a moneymaker. But you and Iowa State will continue to play, and it starts this fall in August. Your thoughts about that? Giving up the home game, but also making sure you continue to play against Iowa State.
Yeah, it was a big decision. Obviously, I don't like giving up a home game. We try to get 7 home games just for our community and other reasons. But it was a unique opportunity for our athletes. And when I talked to other ADs or when Coach Klieman talked to other coaches that had been there, the experience was phenomenal. Many of our athletes have never been out of the country. They put on a tremendous game. I've obviously watched the last couple of games. They treat you like royalty over there. We've had staff go over already to kind of scope it out because it's our home game. Matter of fact, Coach Klieman and myself and our spouses are leaving tomorrow to do a little promotional tour and push some tickets over there in Ireland. But I think it's just a great opportunity, once in a lifetime for maybe some of our kids. The financial pieces of that were very good for both schools. And so, yeah, it's just a once in a lifetime deal, and our fans are buying tickets and they're looking forward to it. So I think it was a win-win all the way around.
You have Chris Klieman. Obviously, there was a part during the season last year where things got a little bit difficult. He's had a great run with you, like you knew what he did at North Dakota State. Can you try to describe the man and what he's meant to K-State football? You have the icon with Bill Snyder who put K-State in position, but just your thoughts about Coach Klieman.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that was one of the reasons that I ultimately landed on picking Chris. Obviously I knew him and I knew what he was about at North Dakota State. And first of all, he's a tremendous person. He cares a great deal about his athletes, but he's also a really, really good football coach. But I knew his personality and just kind of where he was and his character could handle coming in and replacing an icon like Coach Snyder. I told him during the interview process, you're going to drive into Manhattan on Bill Snyder Highway. You're going to walk in, there's going to be a statue of Bill Snyder out in front of the stadium, and the stadium's named the Bill Snyder Family Stadium. So, being able to understand the importance of that and being able to manage that, I thought Chris could do that. And then, certainly build upon the culture that Coach Snyder put together, and put his own mark, and he's done that. And, Coach is a phenomenal guy. He just works constantly, extremely hard. And cares about K-State a great deal. So we're lucky to have him. I think the success in the future will continue to be under his leadership. And he's a great person, a great family man, and it's been a pleasure to have him a part of our staff.
How would you describe, last question, and by the way, enjoy your trip, and I know it's a scouting trip too, as much as reconnaissance, et cetera. How would you describe the Big 12 conference right now with all that's gone on, weathering the storms of realignment and now looking into the future? Paul asked you about the strength of the conference moving forward, but how would you describe the conference and how resilient it's been?
I think that's a great word, is resiliency. And if you ask a guy like Jamie Pollard, that's been through here a little bit longer than I have, been through a lot of changes. He was here when Missouri left and Nebraska left, and was in the room, with those conversations. And when I took the job, that was one of the big things. Will the Big 12 survive? And then, sure enough, Texas and Oklahoma leave, and we don't probably give Bob Bowlesby enough credit for him being able to pull those 4 schools in and really keeping us together, because when that was announced that Texas and Oklahoma, it didn't feel very comfortable, unfortunately, where the Pac-12 is today. But, we could have been there. But because of Bob's leadership and his ability to keep us together, and then Brett's come in and added more strength to our conference. So I would say the resiliency is a great word, and that's just kind of who we are. We're going to keep getting better and stronger. And I think the programs we've added have been awesome. They bring a lot to the table, and the remaining 8 that have been here for a long time are just great institutions with great ADs, and we're all in to make this conference as strong as we possibly can.
There's more important things in life than athletics, but did you ever not sleep at night during that time when you didn't know what was going to happen the next day?
Yeah, there was a lot of, there really was, because I just knew the importance of being in a power league. My heart, I think about my colleagues at Oregon State and Washington State and the challenges they're facing, and give them a lot of credit for fighting like heck. But yeah, trust me, there was a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of late night calls and one-on-one calls with my colleagues. What are we going to do? How are we going to do this? But, fortunately we were able to manage through it, and I think we're stronger for that.
Thank you, Gene. Enjoy your trip. Appreciate it. Tell Coach Klieman we said hello as well.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Gene Taylor, Director of Athletics at Kansas State.